Next event is panel India Gaming Market Status Quo. We have Salone Sehgal, Lumikai, Sohn from Krafton, Roby John from Super Gaming, Inderpal Singh from Moonfrog Labs. Will be moderated by Imtiaz Hussain, Yesgnome Games.
Hello everyone, how are you guys doing? Did you guys have a good lunch? Can we make some noise? Woo, woo. Okay, great. Well, let me call the panelists, and there is a slight change with the panel right now because some, different things some people had to handle. So we have Roby from Super Gaming. Please give a big round of applause for people. Yeah. And we have Kirti from Hitwicket. She's somewhere here. And we have Nyansh from Krafton. Please give a big round of applause, guys. Thank you. All right. Can you check if your mics are working? Check. Okay, cool. Again, thank you so much for taking time. I'm so sorry for the delay because we had a speaker coming in from the government, so they wanted to convey what they are up to. So, but thanks for your patience. My name is Imtiaz Hussain, and I'm one of the co-founders of a gaming company, Yesgnome, which is based out of Hyderabad. And before I, have our panelists to start talking about them, I would like to briefly talk about. Can we have a show of hands? How many of you are attending IGDC for the first time? Brilliant. Great. Thank you so much. And so just so you know that India Game Developer Conference, IGDC, is a very non-profit by the industry, for the industry, what is what we call. I think we have almost like 45 or 50 volunteers that are participating, helping in various aspects of, like, someone is doing ops, someone is doing, raising sponsorship, and a bunch of them are helping with the, content curation and all. So, it can be done only because we have a lot of sponsors here. So one of them is obviously Nyansh. Thank you so much. And that said, I would also quickly have all our panelists to quickly introduce yourself, and maybe if you can think of a book that you're reading that you might like to, or I don't know, or an OTT show that you're watching that you would advise, that would be good. Recommend or something. Kirti, you want to start first?
Hi everyone, I'm Kirti, co-founder of Hitwicket. Hitwicket is a mobile cricket game with over 12 million users across the globe and the highest rated game on App Store and Play Store from India. I have a 1.5-year-old son, so the book that I'm reading is How to Raise a Good Kid.
Okay. How to Raise a Gamer Kid, or did you say that?
How to Raise a Good Kid.
Okay.
Same thing.
Okay.
Hi guys, my name is Roby. I'm the founder and CEO of Super Gaming. We're a game studio that specializes in making real-time multiplayer games. Started small. Our studio story is 3 guys, a dog, and a dream. Today we're about 150 people. Recently launched one of our titles called Indus. What game?
Great.
I'm actually reading a book called The Middle of Diamond India. It's a book written by a bureaucrat, and it kind of is kind of insightful in terms of, this travel around the center of India, where there's this new wave of prosperity. And that's kind of something that I found very interesting.
Sure. And the way you will discover that prosperity, then you'll find, hey, here are my paid users. And that's where I'll do some user acquisition. Yeah, thank you, Nihansh.
Hi guys, I'm Nihansh. I lead corporate development for Krafton. So Sohn our CEO was supposed to be here, but unfortunately he had to catch a flight, and because of that he couldn't make it. But privileged to replace him. Krafton, as some of you might know, we are a global video game publisher and developer, and we are the guys behind the Battlegrounds Mobile India, which is one of India's most popular video games.
Great. And
books, I think because we are at IGDC, I'll talk about the game I'm playing currently. It's Hogwarts Legacy. I'm a big Harry Potter fan, but to be honest, didn't enjoy the game as much as I expected to. But yeah, hopefully next time.
Sure. Uh, Again, before I start, a few questions here, but I would like to quickly call upon, we actually have this panel divided into two segments. One, since it's called India Gaming Market Status Quo, one from a consumption standpoint and one with the production standpoint. Games being built from India for the world or for India. Wanted to understand, what kind of content is being developed and are we ready for it, for ruling the global charts and so on. The other side, how India as a market consuming content, and a lot of people do talk about, hey, ARPUs are low and so on and so forth. But let's hear it from the folks here who have been doing this. And before that, how many of you are actually building content for India here? Purely India. Or rather, I would say India first, global next. Okay, fine. What it looks like that people are generally building content for global audience, so that's good. So let's see if people can actually, some of you can change their mind, what people are actually spending in India. So before that, I'll try to talk about the production standpoint. There is a growth in the talent pool. I remember talking around 2014, 2015 with a bunch of us, and hey, we don't have talent here. We lack that game design talent, or we lack the product talent. That has been changed. How do you think this will position ourselves, India as a production house globally? And do you see change in your studio as well? Do you guys want to start? Any of you? Nihansh, you want to start first, and then?
I think.
Yeah.
I'll probably take this first. So back 15 years ago when we started our game studio, we would actually have to hire trespassers, and that's really the way that, game developed talent kind of built in India.
Sure.
But now the mobile phone has been there in the market for about 10, 12 years. People have grown up playing video games. They've gone and chosen a career to make video games. And we often get a bunch of, very creative people who learned, studied, and chosen video game development as their career choice very early in their life. Probably studied at some of the best universities around the world, and are now coming back to make their own games.
Wonderful.
And that's really where we've seen in our studio, we've grown from 3 people to now about 170, 180 people, all homegrown talent. Everything done in-house, so it means that the talent is there. But is that talent enough? I don't think so yet. The reason being that while we might have the talent, we might not have the experience. So when you see we don't have a culture of making video games in the country. So there's no experience to draw from. There's no kind of role models, culture, mistakes made, lessons learned. So you're going to make those mistakes the first time. But I do think that's the next 3 to 5 years of the journey. What's changing is now you have a domestic market. Earlier, when we were building games, your players were sitting in, 5,000 miles away.
Sure.
And guessing what they want is kind of what you were working on. But now your players are people that you'll go and meet in a cafe right next to your office. I bought more pizza for game testers than any time else in my life in Vimannagar. And that's really what I see changing. And the moment you have these players get that experience of actually building, launching, making mistakes, that's when I'll see the talent in this country move to the next level.
Okay, that's a nice way. Give pizza and get hired. So that's. Kitty, you have any?
Yeah, I would second what Robbie mentioned. I think gaming as an industry, even though it was doing really well, it never got the attention that it deserved. Like, 8 years back when I graduated from ISB, nobody thought that, building a career in gaming is even viable. Why would you leave health tech or fintech and, think about gaming? Is gaming a serious industry? Can you make a career out of it? So those conversations were always there, and what it did was that the talent never got into gaming as a vertical. And that narrative is something that has changed in the last few years drastically. I remember that more than any investment pitches, we have made pitches to parents. Let your engineer son or daughter work with us. The industry is bright and promising. So the moment there are talented people, the moment people view gaming as a top-notch industry and start eyeing for it, that's when the industry grows. So as Robbie rightly said, now that the talent is coming into it, the experiences lacking. But obviously, I think it's the start of a new era where the people who are working right now, they will reach places in, about 5 to 6 years from now. So all the college people out there, I think the scenario for you in India is much, much promising than what it was probably 10 years back.
Sure, and
Yeah,
Niyaz?
and maybe just to add a little bit of context from global markets as well. Uh, this is pretty similar to the trends that have been seen in global markets from Korea as well and China as well, where you initially, obviously, parents and even people don't want to have careers in games because they don't think that it's a viable career option, or you think it's very difficult to make a living there. And for that reason, many bright people who even otherwise may be fans of video games in their personal lives want to do something else to make money. That has already changed to some extent in gaming. But I think the real tipping point from the experience in other markets is a local hero project that really sees success. And once that happens, that is the real tipping point where you can say that, okay, now local companies can have the ability to challenge anybody in the globe. That's exactly what happened in China. That's exactly what happened in Korea as well. I think we are at in between the stage where now you feel that a career in gaming is lucrative enough, but we still haven't found the hero Indian project. When that happens, that will be the real tipping point when you will probably see anybody who's interested even remotely in gaming try to make a career there, and that's when you will see the really good and world-beating projects coming out of India.
That's brilliant, sir. And in fact, I remember when I started my career, I was telling my friends that, hey, I joined a gaming company, and they were like, I get paid for playing Facebook games. And they were like a little surprised, and they thought that I'll not stick around for long and I'll be broke soon. But apparently that changed, and that's all. So, one question that, Robbie, I would like to ask from, you have built shooter battle royale and so on. This is pretty big game. And in context with what we're talking about, the talent, a lot of people say that India do not have talent to build a large game like what you have built. And what challenges did you come across apart from people's opinion, which is like, you're not going to make it. But what are the challenges in reality that you have come across, and what do you think that will change?
I think the biggest challenge is obviously, taking that big shot, convincing people that, it's going to take many years because everybody wants to see instant results in everything that they do.
Sure.
But kind of, making that pitch and saying that, hey, here's something differentiated, here's the strategy, getting your core team together, getting that. So Indus started out as a 2-person team. My co-founder Sujit is probably somewhere here on this. And started in 2021. Around this time, November 25th, 2021, is when we kind of wrote Indus Engine as the first thing. And then kind of growing every department organically, hiring a bunch of it. Like, it's a challenge to build a game like that because it's almost like trying to assemble a perfect storm. You need art, creativity, design, engineering, server, marketing, community, all of those pieces to fall together. The key part of it was obviously patience in terms of finding the talent, adding one more team. Today we kind of got 150 people on that project, and it has been a very satisfying journey, so to say. Our work is not done yet. There's still a lot of work to be done. But I think convincing people that, hey, here is a very long-term project, the most ambitious project that we've done personally in our lives, and kind of raising money for it, showing proof of concept all around the way to kind of say that, hey, play it. Not just for investors, but also for players, right? Getting that feedback, figuring out what that community looks like, what's the differentiation that you're kind of trying to bring, what's the long-term, short-term play inside of it. That's been one of our biggest challenges, but I would say that talent was not a challenge. Assembling the talent took time, but the talent was always there.
Brilliant. So anyone who is planning to build a battle royale or shooter or one of those AA, AAA, the word is that you don't find a shortage of talent. It's just identifying the talent is a difficult aspect. But Kirti, you have built a cricket game, and this is for for the benefit of the audience here. Now that if someone starts a studio, do you recommend them to build? I mean, I don't know how you planned it. You want to build content for India only, and then it graduated to global audiences, or what would be your suggestion or advice for the folks who are building now? Hey, build India first and then graduate, or this not from the consumption standpoint. I'm talking more on the production standpoint, because localization and so on and so forth, and that aspect of it.
There's like a good and a bad aspect of gaming. The good aspect is that when you make a game, just with a click of a button, you can publish in 120 countries. So that is the power of mobile gaming, right? While sitting somewhere in Hyderabad, I know that there's a user in Melbourne playing the game. Now, that good also comes with its con, which is the person sitting in US is also having access to games like Clash of Clans, Clash Royale, or Monopoly Go. So the bar is high. And I think this is where, the biggest misconception lies, that when we are talking about India or we are talking about global, we are talking about the theme of the project. I think more than the theme, there has to be like a very high bar on what you're producing. Because even the Indian guy today has access to the best games out there, which is not the case in a lot of industries. Today, if I want to order food, I know there are only local players. I'm not competing with somebody in US or UK. So from that point of view, I would say that when you're building a game, you can think that which is going to be my target audience, who's going to play more. But in terms of the bar, you need to keep it as high as possible. So that's what I would say.
Okay, and Nihansh is part of the investment team for Krafton, and I had this question. I've been thinking, right? I mean, I'm part of Investor Publisher Connect in IGDC, and I see a lot of deals coming in. A lot of deal flow happens with startups building content, India first, global next, and or maybe start off with mobile and so on and so forth. Now, there seems to be a shift in how the kind of deals that we're getting. Are you also seeing those changes in the kind of deals that you used to get, or the kind of startups who were pitching you before? Now that has been changed now in terms of quality, in terms of kind of content that has been built, in the two aspects of it?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say the quality is getting better with each hour. When we give feedback also, many times the same teams come back to us with a very much more developed product, and incorporating some of the feedback that they had received into those projects. Some of the teams, they've got a real tenacity to them that they will not rest until they've got that perfect product. So that's the right kind of thinking as well. So that's evolving. Even the new guys who are coming in and building, they are learning from some of their peers. They're learning from some of the established guys, companies like Super Gaming and the games that they are publishing, taking all the feedback and taking all the sort of experiences that when you, for example, you initially, I remember the ideas that used to happen were much more on the scale of what global games were doing, but it takes time, right? So now people are much more focusing more towards what can be executed in a shorter period of time, and coming back with requests that even from a fundraise amount perspective are more focused towards proving their case and proving the PMF than raising a large amount of money at one go. So people are teams and companies are getting more sophisticated. They're understanding how these things work, how investors have started to think. So things are improving, and hopefully things will start improving faster and more. And
yeah, but certainly there is an improvement in time.
Absolutely,
in terms of quality,
absolutely.
and yeah, I could see that. I mean, a lot of people. One of the things that I would like to get across, the interesting note that or observation that I had from my time that I spent into Investor Publisher Connect is a lot of entries are coming for PC. And PC games are being built, and the way I can attribute that to is the people who actually were playing games are actually building games now.
Yes,
and these are the
true.
people who are like, so that's phenomenal in my view. And if you have to spend like 1 minute each of you, before that I'll ask this question to the audience here. How many of you actually use AI in your game development life cycle, day to day? Okay, fine. there's obviously buzz, and I'm sure a couple of studios and Nihanshu are also looking at it. So how will that accelerate India's growth story, if you have to do that in a minute?
I think it will be a big, big game changer because earlier a lot of studios, especially the global studios, would have a big, army of artists and things that they could do on the back of, the kind of people that they have. But game is much more than the art, right? There's so much about the immersion and the journey, which is where even if you have a great idea to bring it to life, you would still need somebody, who can paint it that well. So I think especially in the field of art, AI can be a game changer. Like we use it a lot in our marketing, in our some of the assets that we have used in the game. So I think, this is actually one of the best tools that has come, and it can give advantage, not just global in India. I think it's going to be extremely empowering for any Indian game developer because now you can develop something which is a lot more polished and high quality.
And Robbie, are you?
I'll just build on that. I think of both sides, right? Creativity and execution. I think execution is always a challenge. We use a bunch of AI tools that kind of improve our efficiency significantly. Things that we could, would have done in a month, now are getting done in a few hours. So definitely see a large improvement on the execution side of things. On the creativity side of things, still kind of a lot of our content is handcrafted. We don't use AI in any one of those, but our marketing teams do. So I would say that, once you've got a solid base, you figured out what the creativity is, kind of building on that, using AI tools to kind of speed up production is really where I see the first phase of AI kind of coming in. The second phase will be a lot more natural extension to all of it, where you'll also have it kind of rationalize, think, and kind of improve it by itself. Still waiting for that day, but I think I'm good enough with the tools today.
Sure. And Nihan, you have an opinion on how?
So, from a startup perspective, absolutely, I think it can be a game changer because, like we've talked about before, there's a general lack of people who are experienced, talented, etc. So, obviously, if one person can now do things that earlier you needed 10 people to do, that's very helpful. So, smaller teams can make better and better games and faster, and iterate faster and faster. I think. I think Robbie talked about this, but it's very important also that you can't completely rely on it, and you need to also take care to train the next generation because if the next generation can't do anything without Mid-Journey or any of the other tools available out there, then they're not going to have the same level of creativity that is required in something like video games. You need that basic level of creativity, and you need to be able to think in that manner. So I would say yes, it's a very exciting technology, especially for challengers. For the incumbents, not so much because the moats just got lowered. But for the challengers, obviously, it is a very exciting and potentially a game-changing journey. But there are obviously pitfalls and potential dangers that everybody needs to be careful of. Another thing is about how much is IP secure. Those laws, regulations, that is still evolving, right? And especially for art, there's a lot of people who talk about the fact that it's IP infringement or because you're using open source, that you still hold the IP. For marketing, it's okay, but if you're putting it as part of the game, do you still have IP over your game? So all those things I think will come with time. For now, it's a very exciting technology, which is especially useful for younger, newer studios, but needs to be handled with care, as is the case with most new technologies.
Sure, you have an opinion. Yeah.
Every couple of years, there's a generation, right? So there's like a PC generation, then came the mobile generation, then came the mobile gaming generation, and I think now it's the AI generation. So anybody who is like fresh out of college, I think they should make sure that they are like really on top of it.
Certainly. Moving on to the next segment, where we finished the production side, building content from India globally or for Indian audiences. Now we're going to talk about it from the consumption standpoint, right? Nihansh has Krafton has a property which is doing really well, and then obviously Kirti and Roby going to do it. So a couple of questions. This goes to all. And I want to understand this. India was never been, it's an exciting market for everyone, right? And I was not, never seen someone being so excited from international community standpoint. What is the unique aspect of it, if you have to, Neha,
I think
might ask
from our perspective, this is again, we have observed this not just in gaming, but in other sectors where we invest as well, because as you know, we don't invest just in gaming, but in media entertainment, content platforms. And everywhere there's a common theme that people are extremely willing to experiment. India is an entertainment-starved country. Obviously, Bollywood used to be our biggest source of entertainment, but now people are not enjoying it as much as they used to, right? So we want more entertainment. We want to enjoy more, but so we are open to experimenting with different sources. We're not fixed in a way that, oh, I'm a gamer, so I don't need to watch Netflix, or oh, I'm not a gamer, so now I can't play any game. So people are not fixed, in that way. So that is the most unique aspect. And the other unique aspect is that it is, the power law in startups is always very strong, right? The guy who's the leader is very strong. Then obviously number two is little lesser space. In India, it's even more extreme because Indian users are especially they are the average Indian user is time rich but money poor. So they will give time to a lot of games. They will give time to a lot of apps, different sources of entertainment. They will pay for only a very select few. So that is a very interesting metric because you have to ensure to build something where there are not already too many challenges because then the ability for you to succeed, especially on the revenue side, is very is on the lower side. But at the same time, you've got room to experiment because people are willing to give you a chance, and they're willing to give you second chances as well. Normally, in a lot of markets, if people uninstall your app, there's very little chance they're coming back. But in India, what we see is that people are still willing to reinstall your app. Even if they sort of fall off, after some time, they can come back. Especially on the content platform side, there are a lot of content platforms which have sometimes a negative churn. That users you've lost are coming back after 6 months and seeing what's new on the app. So those are very interesting metrics and all symptomatic of a public or a population that wants more entertainment but is not getting it yet.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, people also look at India as low CPI, obvious reasons that the ARPUs are low. But what is your opinion on that front, globally, how people are looking at us?
I think from a content perspective, a lot of my learnings are from on the ground. Last 3 years, I spent time going all around the country, meeting with players. I have this funny anecdote in which, somebody said that Saudi Arabia now spends the most money in games. I went there and I realized that why? Because there's nothing else to do. So I kind of thought that that's there. But this middle of diamond India that I kind of think about, I think of it as the Saudi Arabia of India. Simply because, in these cities, you have people with, relatively good income now. There's a cheap Android device, but very good internet and lots of time. So building on what Nyan said, which is, hey, people will give you time, they might not give you money, but because they have time and they're kind of spending time inside of it, they're willing to experiment, they're willing to try out new things. But they're also very aspirational. So I kind of, one of the big things that I kind of found inside of it is, if you look at, let's say, the top 200 YouTubers, a lot of them come in from very poor backgrounds, and they're all stories of aspiration. And there's 20 million more people who want to be the next one. I do think that that's really what's changed in the country, that the entire country has grown up on the internet now, at least the next generation since 2017. And that's really where the entire country is very aspirational in terms of its content choices. I do think that that's something that I've not seen evolves as fast anytime before.
Sure. And Kirti, anything from the numbers?
I mean, before I get to numbers, so basically there's a Starbucks in India, and there are a lot of people that go over there, and there's a small coffee shop outside your office. People go there as well. We can't say that Starbucks is not going to work in India, because the people who are at the small shop won't come there. And at the same time, it's wrong to assume that the people who are buying in Starbucks would be okay to go and have a coffee at a small shop. The point that I'm trying to bring is that India is so damn unique in the kind of widespread TG that it has. Somebody said that, every 50 kilometers, the per capita GDP, the per capita income is changing. And I think that is what you need to understand when you're building a product. You can have 100 million users or even 50 million MAU, but what is the TG that is going to fall in the category of spenders? What is the TG that will fall into high rollers? What is the TG that will not pay but will actually give competition to the other guy who can spend? So I think that's the lens that should be applied, that in India, the top 20 million population of India is actually comparable to the 2 million cricket fans in Australia. So the deep pockets exist. And that's why I feel that, if the content is great, then yes, Indians will spend. But obviously, you can't expect somebody to spend $1,000 who's, let's say on a 3 GB device or who's not earning much. But he can spend 50 rupees. How many of the maids and drivers have hello tunes? They will spend $200 on a tune which they don't even listen. So I get the part that, people are willing to spend, but they'll spend in their capacity. And that, I think, is happening. That's very much real, where people are making small transactions, showing that entertainment is very much mainstream, and gaming is as mainstream as any other form of entertainment.
Lovely. And do you want to quickly talk about the story of that BGMI of your house help here? You had a house help who was talking about the...
Actually, I have a house help who helps me with the kid, the nanny. So she was asking that, what do you do? And I was just thinking in my mind that how do I explain to her that I'm in a mobile gaming industry and I have a cricket game called Hit Wicket. So I was like, I have a mobile game. She's like, oh, mobile game, PUBG jaisa hai kya? And I just could not believe. She's like, हाँ मैडम मैं तो PUBG कितना खेलती हूँ, मैंने PUBG चप्पल भी खरीदे.
So I think that's the reason.
So yeah, that's the penetration of mobile gaming.
Yeah, I agree that. And in the interest of time, I think I would, have each of you quickly comment on the community play here. I mean, there is an aspect community play here. I mean, you built you had a pre-registrations run and so on and so forth. But everyone, if you have to 30 seconds spend time on that, how important it is to have that community build before that launches and so on.
I think we're a very new mobile gaming generation. We're a first-time gaming generation that's only on mobile. Key parts instead of it is to kind of figure out what the user wants. The way that our company kind of built it is around, we were an early member at Y Combinator, and the only rule inside of YC was write code and talk to users. For us, community building was the talk to users part. Unless you kind of know what a user wants, building for him is really, really hard. I think the only two ways to kind of build a games company is kind of thinking about direction and velocity. Direction is what your players are telling you, what that feedback is, and that's overwhelming sometimes. Figuring out how to pick that up and execute it fast enough is really the velocity that your team kind of delivers under. If you get a combination of these two right, then you'll kind of survive in our industry. That's really why we kind of focus on community first. Buying an organic community, building one where you can talk to them. When you can, we have, I think, 100K conversations on WhatsApp. And I'm in most of these WhatsApp groups. So getting feedback first-hand from players.
Lovely.
There's nothing that, no focus testing, etc. beats getting real feedback from your user. And I think that's really improved the games that we are kind of building for many years.
Sure. And Kirti, do you have a decent community for how actively you talk to the users?
I think community is pivotal. And, one of the reasons why a lot of games are able to garner a community is that people are able to connect for a common reason. A lot of times, we watch movies which somebody else has recommended because you feel that, okay, that's the common connect. The moment you see a school friend of yours, you're like, okay, the school is the connect. And I think games do have that power. When you're actually immersed and you play a game for a long period of time, that game becomes a connect for you to, interact with like-minded people. And that's why I feel that, community is as central to building a great game as anything else around it. You get live feedback, you get to know what people want, how they are, reacting to it. Sometimes you may have a great idea and you think I'm doing something which is very user-friendly, but may not be the case. I think recently, Brawl Stars rolled back a feature where they had rolled it out and the community didn't like it. They perceived it
there was
as
a
pay
backlash,
to win, and they actually rolled it back. So I think that's the power of community, and if the games can leverage it, then they definitely should.
And Nia Shuham, I mean, you would be happy, as long as people buying my chappals, I'm okay. PUBG chappals.
Yeah, but we are BGMI, not PUBG, so. But
I actually Googled and saw that, there are those choppers.
oh, okay. I'll try to find them. But, in terms of community, I completely agree with both the panelists. I think it is the most pivotal aspect. And, feedback is obviously one very important aspect. But even for a game which is as established as ours, community is bread and butter because of the fact that it builds loyalty like nothing else. It creates a culture which then spawns other things like, chappals, t-shirts, merchandise. You don't generally do that for a video game unless you are loyal and you really, buy into the whole community aspect to it. And that is what actually creates the best kind of acquired user, which is the organic acquired user, right? So even for a game as established as I would say, community is pivotal, community is key. So if you need to think about it from day one because you need to design a game which can, it is easier to develop a community for that game. It is easier to sort of create elements for the community because you start small and then you grow big slowly. It doesn't happen overnight. If you don't plan for it on day one, you can't suddenly say that, oh, now I need a community, now let me hire like 5 people, and that's not going to happen. You need to think about it from day one.
Sure. We'll have this one last question here. Before that, if any of you have, we're going to take only one question. Please raise your hand and keep the question short okay, fine. By the time you get the mic, I'll ask this one last question. What is your prediction? What could happen in the next 2-3 years for Indian gaming community? If you have to put in like in 30 seconds. 30 seconds.
I think India will be in the top 5 grossing revenue markets globally.
I think India will find its breakthrough, like I'm going to use Niyaj's thing of India will have its breakthrough game. Similar to what, let's say, Rovio did for Finland, similar to what Flappy Bird did for Vietnamese developers, Peak did for Turkey, or Voodoo did for France. India will find its game and its breakthrough game.
Lovely. And Nihanshu?
Yeah, no, I would say that you will definitely see some successes coming out of India. They may not be as spectacular as some of the already successful games in India, but the trend will be clear. And at the same time, you will also find Indian users continuing to play global games because that's the beauty about the Indian market, right? That there's space for everyone. And you will also find a lot more collaboration between global and local studios, which is already happening in our case.
Yeah.
So I think India will become a very important part of the worldwide global market. You will see Indian games doing very well outside India. You will see Indian themed games doing very well outside India markets. So a lot of these things will happen in the next 4 or 5 years. We're optimistic about it. But
100%. Pretty much. We had a question here. Someone. And sir, can you keep it short also?
Yeah. I'm Harshavardhan, co-founder of a metaverse company called Artiverse. Could you please tell how is the scope for VR gaming?
VR gaming, do you guys have an opinion? What is the scope of VR gaming, if one of you would like to comment? If there is another question, we'll take one more question.
I personally kind of build only for mobile because more accessible, faster. VR is more sitting in front of a console, equivalent of all of that, which is why we've kind of never invested inside of VR.
Sure. Thanks for asking that question, by the way. I mean, I think it has to do with how accessible the VR headset is, right? And it's fundamentally, with the new headsets that are being launched by Meta, which is more easy and affordable, I think there will be more.
Yeah, to add to that, I think even globally, obviously Meta is continuing to improve and improve their headsets. But there are certain key problems and still in the headsets, and one of the major problems is that you cannot play for extended hours. And if my game can only be played for like 15, 20 minutes at a stretch, and even that gives you a headache, that's a major problem for me as a builder. And I will not invest time to sort of build too much unless some of those key problems are solved. So I think, but I'm optimistic that Meta will, obviously it's a big company and they have a very large R&D department, so they must be putting a lot of resources behind this. But this problem is not just technical; it's also biological. It's also what the human brain is capable of taking, right? So unless you can deliver it in a format, because I have played VR shooter games as well, there's no experience which compares, right? It's amazing, but it puts a very large. I mean, I could not spend 10 minutes in that game.
I agree.
I think those problems need to be resolved before we get to the stage where you can see VR games.
As a mainstream, yeah, thank you. And we had another question, sir. Can you keep it short?
Yeah, good afternoon panel. I'm Tosi from Gaming on Phone. So
Can you keep it closer, the mic? Yeah.
Yeah, my question is, where do you see the trend in the Indian market going in terms of localization? I mean, we are already seeing a lot of localized games like Bullet Echo India or Cookie Run Kingdom India. So do you see that happening like Japan and Korea, or how do you see it? Because it's not like we don't have access to the games, like Cookie Run is already available, the original version. So
Yeah, so I think the question is that how important is the localization aspect of it? How do you see that as a trend? And localization is not just language, it has to do with the culture and it has to do with, to a certain extent, payment gateways and all. It's very localized, right? How do you see that trend, if you have to?
I don't know whether this is the correct answer to what you're saying, but when we talk about culture, we've always thought about gaming as an expression of your art and culture. And we found ourselves underrepresented in that world of gaming, which is why we kind of chose to make Indus based on what we call the theme of Indo-futurism. Our theme essentially was the Wakanda of India, of kind of thinking about what the movie Black Panther did for Afrofuturism, where it combined art, culture, tradition of Africa, but it also said Wakanda is the most futuristic city in the world. Indus is literally what we try to think about as the Wakanda of India. So definitely see a very strong pull from trying to think about from a local culture perspective. The other parts of the localization, I think, that's the market is already solving for you. That's not really what you need to do. But we definitely do see our artists get more excited about expressing their own art and culture than they would be, for example, drawing a Western theme. And that's something that I've kind of found very easy to kind of attract talent, retain talent, work on something more ambitious, given this theme that we work on.
Sure. And Kirti, you have a comment on it? Because, yeah.
So I would say, first is to crack a great game, because once the core is in place, then the localization and the customization aspect will make it even better. But just because we have made something which is, let's say, very akin to India, I think that should not be the first step in the journey. The first step is, how do I get a core which is as fantastic and comparable to, let's say, any other great game out there, and then leverage the customization and the personalization aspects.
Certainly. Ishwar, we have done that time. Okay, fine. Guys, that was the last question. Thank you so much. You have been lovely audience. Thank you so much for joining in. And big round of applause to all the panelists here. They are here, Kirti, Roby, and also Nihansh. If you have any questions, you can ask them. Guys, thank you so much. You have been kind. Super. Thank you. Oh, we have a picture? We have a picture. Call up.
Just on and record the lecture. No, or ask someone to record.